Now, going into this, because of the episode title, I knew it was going to be a Latka-centric episode. What had me worried was that they were going to run the gibberish language bit into the ground. Well, wouldn't you know it? They absolutely did do exactly that. That's exactly what they did. Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the next episode of Taxi. Now, if you're enjoying these episodes, or if you're just a fan of Taxi and enjoy consuming content about it, please consider subscribing and or following. Like the episodes, comment. You can send us an email, which I will respond to at info@therank.podcast with your suggestions, comments, questions, whatever. Please also consider becoming a patron on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast. Now, today we're ranking the 11th episode of the second season of Taxi, titled Latka's Revolting, which was written by Glenn and Les Charles and directed by James Burrows. Welcome back, Jimmy. Now, for those of you who might be new listeners / watchers, I just want to let you know how the show layout is. We start off with the potent notables, which are just a couple interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the episode or series. Then we go into the episode overview, which is just me talking about the episode in general. And then we go to the rank, the namesake of the show, where I rank the episode in 5 categories. The whole premise here is we're trying to figure out what is the best sitcom of all time. So to do that, we take a sitcom series. I rank every single episode of the series. Those rankings get compiled and averaged, and then that gives us the series score. Now, with a series this old, it's been around for 45 years. It's available on streaming. I'm not going to worry about spoilers. Spoilers are ahead. So let's dive in, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So this 33rd episode of Taxi was released on Tuesday, November 27th, 1979. Taxi went up quite a bit this week, all the way up to 4th for the week at a 27.5 rating. Just behind MASH at 3, 60 Minutes at 2, and its lead-in, Three's Company, at number 1 with a 31.4 rating. ABC also won the week because it had 2 football games and a boxing match. Interestingly, boxing made the top 15, but neither football game did. Just fascinating how much has changed in 50 years, because there's not a chance in hell that a welterweight championship match would come close to a regular season football game in ratings nowadays. Also, Happy Days and Angie, the other ABC Tuesday lineup shows, the 8 o'clock and the 8:30 show, didn't make the top 15 either. So Taxi and Three's Company were big for this week for ABC. Now, my second and final potent notable here is about Lenny Baker, who played Bashi in this episode. He was an accomplished American actor, celebrated for his versatility in theater, film, and television. On stage, he earned a Tony Award in 1977 for his performance in I Love My Wife, and was also nominated for a Golden Globe for Next Stop Greenwich Village. His career was actually pretty brief, but he still had guest appearances on The Rockford Files, Starsky and Hutch, and Kojak, along with Taxi, obviously. And this episode actually ended up being his last on-screen appearance. He died 3 years later at the age of 37 from thyroid cancer. Sorry to be a downer. I just thought it was worth a potent notable. All right, let's go to the episode overview. Now, going into this, because of the episode title, I knew it was going to be a Latka-centric episode. What had me worried was that they were going to run the gibberish language bit into the ground. Well, wouldn't you know it? They absolutely did do exactly that. That's exactly what they did. I just don't understand this show. They had so much momentum going, and then they basically were just like, wouldn't it be funny if we just had them speak gibberish for the entire show? Why was there nobody there to say, you know, we've tried this a few times and it wasn't all that funny. Maybe let's find a different angle here. Alas, there was nobody there to tell them, so we open up with Latka listening to the radio and hearing news in his native language. Now, this didn't really bother me. I thought this was reasonable. It was when Bashi showed up a little bit later and started doing the foreigner don't talk good English gag, and immediately went into the gibberish that my antenna were raised. Sure enough, we get to hear the national anthem of Caspiar or whatever, which, if I'm being honest, I still wasn't entirely turned off yet. I thought, if this is it, I can do it. I was especially excited when Latka said, no, we're in America, let's talk American. Now, this is the part of the show when I'm going to stop for a second and say, I don't have any issue with people speaking a different language in America than English. I think that people who give a shit about that are ridiculous and should absolutely just fuck off. I just think the gibberish language joke plays out super quick and they rely on it too much. That's all I'm saying. Okay, back to the show. The reason Bashi is there at all is because Latka's homeland is experiencing a revolution. Bashi is there to convince Latka to join him in going back and fighting in the war. After all, Latka is a general. The least informed general in history apparently, but a general nonetheless. Bashi is effective in his selling, tugging on the heartstrings of Latka's patriotism for his native land. This sets everyone at the garage into a growing concern for Latka's safety, but they give up fairly quickly, with Alex giving uncharacteristically terrible advice, which Latka likens to talking to his own wrench, which I enjoy. Their weak attempts to make him stay fail, and they decide to throw him a going away party. Now at this party, the writers of Taxi revert to their old ways of telling really long jokes that aren't funny. First with Tony's Vietnam story that just ended up being that he didn't want to talk about his comrades in arms becoming a gay couple. That was the punchline. Then we get them all dancing in a circle for about an hour, until they finish by all doing a split. Why? Yeah, that's the question I was asking too. They're all sad to see him go, even Louis. We get a seemingly endless stream of toasts until this episode culminates in the reappearance of Bashi. He's going to end up drawing a map of the country on a chalkboard and show where all the troops are. He of course knows all this, but for some reason Latka, the general, remember, is in the dark. When we see that Latka's rebels are completely surrounded, Latka gives up the fight, and they eventually convince all the rest of the Caspiarians, or whatever they are, to give it up as well. And then we end up with them singing the national anthem, which eventually turns into Yankee Doodle Dandy. So yeah, that was the entire episode. Let's see how it ranked.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh out loud. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. Now, before I dive into the rankings, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help us grow the show. So the first category is story, which I gave a 3.75. It's a pretty good story. That's a little heavy for a sitcom. The thing is that while I don't think it was executed very well, I do think the story was a decent one, actually a pretty good one. So let's go to acting, which I gave a 4. The acting is pretty good. I mean, the extra people in it are forced to act with this dumb gibberish language, so they should earn some points for that, I guess, right? Or at least not have points taken away, because it's not their fault they were given this ridiculousness to act out. I suppose they could have said no, though, so I guess there's that. Anyway, let's go to dialogue, which I gave a 2. Glenn and Les Charles. There are aspects of this show that are definitely getting better. This reliance on the gibberish language as a joke, though, is not. They even went back to the joke going on too long thing they had done before. Like, how long were they dancing? Or how about the crazy, heavy Vietnam story so that they could turn it into a gay joke? Christopher Lloyd remains hilarious though, and I'm really enjoying him. I also like Latka, but it's just never a good episode when they rely this heavily on the "isn't his language funny?" joke. So let's go to episode coherence, which I gave a 2.25. I suppose the plot of the episode coheres. They present Latka as a general, but he is somehow the least informed. Wouldn't it have worked better if Latka had been Bashi's subordinate and he was getting sort of strong-armed into going? Then they could have convinced Bashi and the gang could have had more active involvement. It just feels like they made the wrong choices with a decent story. Also, there's no word that is just constantly repeated in a language like they do with ibida. That's just ibidum. So let's go to character relatability, which I gave a 3.5. I mean, it's relatable. I can understand not wanting to let a friend go off to war. I can also understand your patriotism getting the better of your judgment. That being said, it didn't engage me as fully as I think it could have. So that gets us to the laugh counter. Now, there are some mixed rankings here, so it needs a good laugh counter for it to stay in the top 3 tiers, and I had 10. Which isn't terrible, but certainly not good enough to get it there. A grand total of a 25.5, which makes it a mediocre. So Christopher Lloyd really saved this episode from being a rank it and regret it one, because basically all of those are either Latka or Jim. So now as for the series average, it's at a 25.4, which just barely keeps it as a mediocre. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our episode and series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment, and please consider supporting us on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast. Also, if you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like. It really does help us out. But I will leave you with this. Why did Latka keep spinning when Bashi first showed up? Because Bashi told him to join the revolution.
That's as good as it's gonna get, isn't it?
What had me worried was that they were going to run. What had me worried was that
We're gonna be here a while.